All right, today we're going to talk about Chris Jericho celebrates 30 years, the Retribution faction in WWE, and the WWE draft and analysis. Joining me today is Collin Sturchio. I'm your host, Uncle Adam. This is the Goonery. What's going on, Collin?
What's up, Adam? How you doing?
Can't complain, living the dream, another day in paradise, all those cliches.
There you go.
Yeah. You recently wrote an article for the Goonery, and last night on AEW Dynamite, Chris Jericho celebrating his 30-year storied career. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
It wasn't last night. It was the week before. But
might be.
well, and even they got the date wrong. It was the week before that was officially 30 years. But, I mean, if you look at a guy who's done just about everything there is to do, there's not a better guy to talk about than Chris Jericho. I mean, he's gone from being 17 and saying, hey, I want to be a rock star, I want to be a wrestler, and going completing both. And as soon as he went through school saying, okay, I'm going to go to Mexico, I'm going to learn my craft there, going to Germany, learning his craft there, going to Japan, and then finally coming to the States and doing everything there is and still poking his head around the world again at 49 years old. It's crazy to think.
I know.
But if there's anybody who deserves the props, it's him.
He's definitely like one of the all-time coolest characters to, grace us with his presence in the wrestling industry. Yeah, I read up on that too, right? So he started in like Lucha Underground, and he was all over the world. Started in WCW before he made it to WWE. It's kind of a misfit in WCW, and really found his footing once he got to WWE.
Well, I feel like him and his best friends were all looked at as misfits because they weren't the big guys, and
right.
They weren't ever going to get to a certain spot because you had guys like Hogan and Savage who had the creative control and had the opportunity to be in that position, and guys like Jericho and Benoit or Guerrero who could have had that chance there were never going to make it just because of the higher-ups. And that's, looking back, I mean, you can even look at a guy like Eric Bischoff. Now he'll openly say that's my biggest mistake. We should have done things differently from there. We'd probably still be around if that was the case.
Yeah, I think his charisma, right, was really his. I mean, he had good, in-ring ability, but his promos and charisma, I think, really elevated his career to, like, I don't know, be one of the greats. I mean, he came
100%.
out in WWE, right? Talking shit with The Rock on like day one.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, and he had a little stumble right after that, just because of the way things went, and they didn't have anything planned, but they knew they wanted him. And he's gone on to be the record 9-time Intercontinental Champion, the first undisputed champion, and a world champion, I want to say 6 times altogether, plus an AEW champion, and being the cornerstone for that company. And if there's any guy that you want as your first world champion, that's a guy to have. I know he lost the belt, but that's still a good dude to have as the first person for a championship.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, he was doing hilarious shit in WWE before he left. He had shit like The List.
Oh yeah.
It's just so funny. Yeah. Bunch of one-liners. Jerichoholics, Raw's Jericho.
My favorites from WCW were he does the list of the 1,004 holds, and every other word is armbar. And then my other one is where you literally just pull something out of your ass, and it's a feud with Goldberg and get it to become one of the hottest angles that there is.
Yeah, he's definitely a blueprint for how to make it in the industry.
Well, and my biggest thing with him is he knows when he feels like he's stale, so he knows that the audience is going to feel like I'm stale. And even when he goes on a 6-month hiatus, and he goes, I'm going to come back as something different because I don't want them to think I'm just going to be the same thing every time, which I think is the smartest thing you can do, because you even look at him now. He didn't come in with like the light up jacket or anything like that. He didn't come in and try and bring in a list or anything like that. He came in as the Rainmaker and just kicked ass.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you say he was had a better career when he was a face or when he was a heel?
Oh, 100% a heel. because
Yeah.
I look at that feud with Shawn Michaels in 2008, and that is like one of the first feuds I can remember,
I
like
know.
in depth. And for me now, I love the dude to death, but back then I couldn't stand him. And
Right.
it's people like that when, like, I just finished his book last week,
Okay.
and he goes, I had them not sell a single bit of merchandise. I had them not do anything because I didn't want a single person in that crowd to like me. And that's what a good heel has to do.
Yeah.
You want every single person in that crowd to hate you, because then you're
Yeah.
doing your job. If one person likes you, then the whole crowd, like, it's the thing. Like, I look at the new, like, I've always looked at Elias currently. He's a dude I like even as a heel, just because he's good on the mic and he does things like that. But that doesn't work a lot to be a heel at that point. You want everybody to hate you.
Hmm. Right. So he was on a hiatus from WWE during the 2000s, mid 2000s, and I was looking forward to his return. I think it was like 2007 or 8 or 9.
The end of
Um,
2007.
yeah. Okay. So I loved him, like, during his you know early 2000s and run with WWE. He comes back, and I'm like, this isn't the guy I remember, and like I just remember just hating his like new character, and was like, this is bullshit. Years later, kind of listened to some podcasts. I think he's got a podcast, or he was a guest on some. I don't.
He's got his
But
own, yeah. It's a
yeah,
good
so
podcast. I like it.
yeah, he's explaining it. What goes into being hated as a character, and I was like, holy shit. Okay, yeah. So you choose to not do all the stuff that people like from the past, and yeah, he done such a successful job at just reinventing his persona, just to never kind of get stale or repetitive, and obviously that's led to his success and how he's
We'll
still
see. And like me, I even look at guys like, if you look at somebody like The Undertaker, who's had such a storied career himself, even he says, I couldn't have been, there's no way I could have been the first iteration of The Undertaker my whole career. He
right.
had nuances of that throughout his entire career, but there's no way he could have ever have been the gray glove digging holes for people. Like, he just could have never done that. And that's why him moving to the American Badass was the greatest thing he ever did. And he'll openly say it too. But then to be able to morph back into the
Right.
dead man persona, but have bits and pieces throughout. And that's what you have to do. You want to have a certain core that you stick to, but you never want to get stale, ever.
You really don't. All right, moving on. Retribution, the faction, newest faction in WWE. It's got a lot of people scratching their heads.
I'm going to
I'll
be
give you the
honest. When I
first
first
take.
saw it, I thought it was stupid.
Well,
I
all
thought it
right.
was completely stupid.
Okay, I want to ask why, but I'm gonna just give my hot
It
take real
just,
quick.
well, the whole thing was, like, when they first came out, I thought they were trying to do like a knockoff of the Nexus, which I thought was great. Like, I didn't mind it then, but then it's when they came and revealed who each other were, and they're like, yeah, we had to sign contracts. And I'm like, y'all just made no sense. What are you talking about? Like, that's where I said, this sounds really stupid. You had to sign a contract in order to destroy the company that you're going after. And I liked the Mustafa Ali as the leader, because it kind of harkens back to when they were doing the whole hacker, because everybody was saying that he was the hacker on SmackDown.
Okay.
So all in all, to me, I feel like that was a good way to do that, because it brings him kind of full circle, and it's elevating a mid card guy. That's
Is
what
he
you always want to
the
do.
is he the leader now?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if they had a leader. I hadn't caught it the past week or so.
Yeah, they currently have him as it, and then on the draft, what I thought was super weird was that they drafted them, like, I can't remember the exact round, but it was like in the middle rounds, maybe 2 or 3. And I
Yeah.
was like, why? I would feel like that would be the last person you'd want to draft, and it'd just be like, well, they're on here, we kind of have to pick somebody. Okay, here we go. Not, okay, let's get the group that's destroying our whole set and everything else midway through the draft. It just
Yeah.
didn't make sense in my head.
Yeah. I feel like some of the creative and story, with some of these characters, is a little questionable, and it makes it hard to digest.
Oh,
He's
100%.
one of them. Uh, when I look at them, they look like Antifa to me. Does
Yeah, I could, and I feel like that maybe is like sort of because we all know Vince is like super in with Trump, and I'm not trying to bring anything up like that. But
Well,
it's
right. We're not trying to get political here, but
no, but it's like I feel like that's maybe his sort of a way to say, let's kind of just put our own spin on this in a way.
right. That was when I first saw them. You know, they're all dressed in black, and you know they're, you know, you can't see their
They're
faces.
spray painting everything. They're just
Yeah, they're
destroying
just
everything. It's like a big,
rioting, right? They're just
yeah, it's a big
rioting.
riot.
Well, I don't hear anybody describing them as like an Antifa. You know, they're always trying to come up with new gimmicks, right? And like this one looks like the Antifa gimmick.
Now, I will say, I think some of the names that they came up with were really dumb. I feel like you could have just brought the people up from NXT with their names that they had down there,
Mhm.
like Maya Yim and Dajakovic and all that, and it would have been fine. You didn't have to come up with T-Bar and Mace and these names that I'm just like, where did
Yeah,
you come up with this? Like, I hate to rag on their creative, but I'm like, did you just throw it in front of a 4-year-old and say pick some names? Because
yeah.
like
I mean,
I'm a staunch defender in pretty much all wrestling. Like I will watch just about anything, but it makes me scratch my head sometimes. And I know everybody likes to blame Vince and say, "Oh, Vince is out of touch." And I know Vince has the final say, but you can't blame all that on Vince. I'm sorry.
yeah. One of the matches I caught was them versus the Hurt Business, and they were
I
all
think that
wearing.
was the one that Mustafa Ali came out as, right?
You know, this was a few weeks ago. I don't think so. They had
Might have been the week before then.
maybe they were wearing masks, right? One had a Bane mask. I was like, all right, that one makes sense. One of them had like a Jason mask though, and I was like, that kind of doesn't really fit like what they're going for. So
Well, yeah, and then like I see them because I keep up with Eric Bischoff's podcast, and I see him like sparring with this dude T-Bar, which I think is Dajakovic, and I'm just
okay.
like, why are you like going out of your way to go and insult Eric Bischoff, who's not employed by WWE, on Twitter, acting like it's going to help your character? Because I feel like sooner or later somebody in the higher ups is going to say, "Shut the hell up." We're
Yeah.
not doing anything. And I'm seeing Bischoff over here, and I might have to send you a link later. And it was Bischoff did a tweet, and he literally found the Urban Dictionary of what T-bar means, and it was priceless.
Well, we can say that on the Goonery.
Let me see what I can find. Let me see if I can find it real fast
Okay.
because I saw it because I just keep him up at the top of my feed, and I laughed my ass off because he just pulls no punches now. The dude's like almost 60, and he just says, "I don't care. If I
Yeah.
go back, great. If I don't, great."
We need more of that in the world. Um, yeah. So yeah, when I first saw Retribution, I was like, okay, this looks like, you know, a rioting, you know, Antifa type group, you know, underrepresented people that, you know, well, you know, so I had high hopes for it as
Uh huh.
like, you know, a faction that could kind of come in and, you know, just cause chaos and kind of keep things interesting and, but ultimately, yeah, the storyline doesn't seem like it's really progressed in a way that like makes sense. You know, anything I read about them, everyone just seems kind of confused as to like the direction and the
I feel
purpose of
like they're
the
just
group.
spinning their wheels.
Yeah,
And I thought Mustafa being the leader was going to be something that was like going to push them up. But then it was like the next week they did nothing with him. I'm like,
yeah.
why?
You know, I was kind of I was rooting for Seth Rollins to be this, you know,
I
the
could have
guy
seen
pulling
that
the
too,
string.
but I feel like with him and Murphy and everything that's going on,
I know he
feel
was
like
kind
it
of.
fit.
I mean, right. So he's, you know, feuding with the Mysterios, and he's got his Monday Night Messiah thing going on until now. And it's kind of unfortunate, right? Because like you can't really abandon that, and that doesn't quite fit in with like his old persona of he was an anarchist guy, right? So he
Yeah, and that would have fit perfect.
burned
If
it
you would have
down,
kept the whole
dude.
burn it down and everything
Yeah,
like
that's
that, it would have fit perfect.
he had the symbol. Like I I feel like that's a huge missed opportunity because like you know, it's not his time right now.
One, I've got to say, the Messiah gimmick, as much as I love Seth Rollins and I love him as a heel way better than a face,
Yeah.
but I just I don't feel like the Messiah gimmick gets him anywhere. I feel like put him like you did is when he first came up after the Shield. And even for me, like this, he was like one of the most hated heels, but everybody loved him in a way. Like I fell in love with him during that just because he reminded me so much of like a young Edge. He was this
Right.
cocky asshole who didn't care and was like, I'm going to win this championship and I'm going to win everything by hook or by crook. I don't care.
I think with a higher ceiling than Edge too.
Oh, 100%. And I am one of Edge's like staunch supporters.
Right. He's awesome.
At that point in his career, it had taken Edge twice as long to get to that position.
Right.
And Edge came up as a tag team guy, and that's
Right.
mainly why. But with Rollins, if it wouldn't have been for that injury and making him relinquish the belt, there's no telling where he'd be right now. Because I feel like when they put him with the world title when he was a face, it just didn't fit. Because fans said, this just doesn't work. If you'd brought him back as a face when he first got injured, it would have fit fine. Because that's what everybody wanted. When you had him back as a heel, everybody went, wait. And it's just kind of been that back and forth of, okay, let's try him as face. Let's try him as a heel. Let's try him as face. And then you finally flipped him back to a heel this time. And I said, okay, just keep what he's doing, but have him be a bad guy like he already is to the real world. He's already a dick to everybody. So just keep it that way. And then they went and did the Messiah. And I'm like, I don't like the music. I don't like the idea. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, it seems like it's already got kind of stale. And then he was feuding with the Mysterios forever.
And he's still gonna. They're all on SmackDown now.
Yeah, that's a good transition to the draft part of this conversation. I mean, we could start right there. How ridiculous.
It literally felt like you just flip-flopped the main stories from Mondays to Fridays, from blue to red, or red to blue, whatever it is.
Right. So, yeah, there was little movement with any of the characters, any of the roster. And what movement there was, right? You also brought in like the stale feud that they've been in forever with them.
Like when Rollins got drafted, I was like, sweet. I've been wanting to see him on SmackDown.
Right.
I was like, throw him in with a guy like AJ and you'll have a great fight. Throw him in with a guy like Roman. And that I won't be surprised if I see, is to have him and Roman battle for that title, which would be great. But
except they're both heels now, so I don't know if that's
and that's the only thing. And that's why I'm saying, at least within the year, I won't be surprised. It's not going to be anytime soon. But you could at least, even if you're just doing it for like a short minute in an elimination chamber, you're doing it in like a 4-way match. Those are two guys that if you see them in a championship match together, you're going to say, well, either of them's got a chance, in all honesty.
Yeah.
And like, to me, I said, sweet. He's going to wrestle AJ. He's going to wrestle all of these guys. Then you move AJ. And my biggest thing was, sweet, he's going to get away from this feud because it should have been done, I don't know, a week, maybe 2 weeks ago at that point. And then you see Buddy get moved after the draft goes off the air, and you see the Mysterios get drafted. And I went, I drafted, but just end this feud. And I thought if you at least took Buddy out of it, it would have worked. Because when it was just Ray and Seth, I thought it was fine. And then Seth and Dominic, it was fine. But as soon as you brought in this whole like love triangle with his daughter and Buddy, I'm like, oh God, here we go.
Yeah. Oof. Lots of
unpack with it. I look at like one of my biggest ones that I was happy with was I saw The Fiend move over to Raw, which I thought was good. He needed it.
Yeah.
But I feel like you maybe could have moved like a guy like Orton over to SmackDown and then have some stakes in that world title match in the Elimination Chamber, instead of just leaving some guys on their show for the sake of it. And then don't even get me started on the tag team titles.
I won't. We'll save that for towards the end here. First of all, what are your thoughts with the Roman Reigns heel turn?
I love it. Yeah. I was so surprised when he came back because I didn't think he was going to be back at all from what it sounded like. And then to turn him heel, like me, I was a guy who, like, a lot of the time here recently, I've just been checking stuff online, like checking reviews and things like that. I might tune in every so often. Or a lot of times I'll just say, I'll check it on Hulu or on the network or whatever the next day and not really worry about tuning in live. But when I saw that on SummerSlam, I said, well, I know they're doing a pay-per-view in a week. It's probably going to win the belt, but let's see how they do it. Then you paired him with Heyman. And my favorite part was at the Payback pay-per-view, you just have him come in halfway through the match, sign the freaking contract, throw the pen, spear everybody, and leave. And I said, now that's what you got to do. 100%. Make him a badass that doesn't care.
Yeah.
And now he's beating the shit out of his cousin. And I said, perfect.
Yeah.
You're making him that guy that everybody's wanted him to be for a while. It's because he had points when he was a face that it worked. When he was feuding with Vince, when he was feuding with Brock, when everybody was tired of Brock. It just worked.
Yeah.
But you had to make him look like a badass.
So
and that's what they're doing now.
Who do you predict ultimately is going to take the belt from Reigns?
I got to sit here and think about that one.
Yeah.
I haven't really thought of it. I used to always think Brock, but Brock's not under contract.
Yeah. Is Brock done, or is he just...
I know he's not under contract anymore. So knowing him, he's probably biding his time waiting for all this to go by. Plus, he doesn't like people, so who cares? He could go back to the UFC, work a few fights if he wants, but I won't be surprised if he pops his head back into WWE at some point. But he's also got a ton of money, and he's got a ranch in the middle of Saskatchewan. Who's going to want to leave that when all of this is going on, when you already hate people?
Right.
But I don't know. All in all, I won't be surprised if somebody like Seth ends up taking that belt. But there's nobody like I don't see him dropping that belt for a while at all.
Yeah, I think they might try to finagle Seth and Roman. Maybe at Survivor Series or maybe WrestleMania. I feel like
you could at least do something at Survivor Series, like have the teams. And I know normally they do the champion versus champion or whatever, which would be a great feud between him or a match between him and Drew.
Yeah.
And maybe have Seth cost him the match and then just start that little rivalry. And you don't really have to change much with Seth. Just turn him into a tweener instead, where fans can somewhat get behind him. But I think at this point, fans are going to cheer who the fans are going to cheer, and it's just a matter of how you portray those people on TV.
Yeah. Who is the faces on SmackDown right now?
I
feel like everyone's a heel.
Heck, with the draft right now, I can't really think of anybody. Yeah. The Mysterios?
Yeah, right. Wait one sec. Trying to pull up the results here. Yeah, I don't know. Matches I would look forward to, though, would definitely be Roman and Seth, maybe Roman and Daniel Bryan.
Oh, yeah, and Daniel's making his return Friday.
Okay.
So
Daniel Bryan was cock-blocked by Roman Reigns for last couple of years, and, some fans are pretty bitter about that.
I guess you would say Jey Uso right now?
I'm not.
Which I totally forgot, even though he's in this feud. But I look at him. Big E is going to be a big one, obviously.
Oh, Big E, that's right. That was so dumb too. How they.
My thing was they're saying that they're breaking him off to give him a push. You had Kofi be the world champion for 6 months while still a part of the team. Yeah. So why break them up in the first place?
Yeah, Big E's going to win at WrestleMania next year.
And I'm fine with that if that's the case. You have Kevin Owens on there.
Ooh. Love me some KO.
Literally everybody else that I'm at least seeing right now is all heels.
Yeah.
Like, pretty much. At least male-wise. Like, you've got Sasha, who's going to be on there. You've got Bianca Belair, who's going to be on there.
I'm going to have to go out there and say it again. I feel like these draft or these brand splits, Raw and SmackDown and NXT is just, I don't think it works.
Well, see, I feel like it used to. My thing was, like, if you look back in the mid-2000s when they first started them, I always look at, like, 2006, 2007, 2008. When they did, like, we're going to do a 3-hour Raw. It's going to be Raw, SmackDown, ECW. You're going to have matches to determine who gets draft picks, not, hey, Raw gets 3 picks for SmackDown's 2. There's an unknown number of picks. Everybody wrestles for a pick. And, like, one of my biggest ones that I remember was Lashley on ECW and Chris Benoit on SmackDown. And then right after Benoit lost, he got drafted over to ECW. And it was like, well, that's not what you expect. But it gave that, I don't know what's going to happen. And then this year they did, let's do the draft polls. And I said, so we all know who's going to get drafted on certain nights. That just ruins the fun.
Right.
Like, I say go back to the big randomized computer and just let it do that. Because it's so much more fun.
Right. And then I heard there was a lot of say in from like USA and Fox, right, who wanted what people on their shows.
Yeah, well, that was even the case last year, and I don't blame Fox for saying last year, "Hey, we want the Fiend. Hey, we want some of these bigger guys."
Yeah,
But it's like you moved all the stars that SmackDown and Fox wanted last year, and just said, "Okay, they had their time to bump up Raw again." And I'm like, you need to kind of level that playing field more and more. That's why I thought move a guy like Seth, move a guy like Orton to where end his feud at Hell in a Cell, and then go on to a feud with, I don't know, have him go against Otis. Which why that dude is the Money in the Bank holder, I don't know. He
yeah.
needs to lose that freaking contract.
They better figure out quickly what they're gonna do with that.
Just do
But
a Kennedy. Just have him lose the contract like Kennedy did to Edge in '07, and it'll work fine.
he might be one of those
Because it
situations.
just doesn't make sense. I thought back then, all right, this is going to be a cute comedy gimmick, and then they're going to have him like cash in like August, and it's going to be done. Well, it's October, and he's still got it, and I'm like, but you don't even see him featured, and I'm like, so why does he have this contract?
Yeah, they run into that scenario a couple times with some guys that, it's
They
just
thought we're going to be great and just shit the bed.
yeah, yeah. So I think the brand split works for the men wrestlers just because it's pretty stacked roster.
Well, in women and tag teams, I feel like you could say, let's have one women's championship and one tag team championship,
Yeah,
and
there's just
then
not
that
enough
be it, and have
women.
them float.
Yeah, there's not enough women in tag teams right now to carry over to two shows.
No, and I'll even say there's a guy that I watch on YouTube. His name's Good Mic Work, and I follow him a lot on Twitter. And he said, "I swear, if they don't move, or if they move the New Day over to Raw, they better unify these championships. Because I swear, if they just swap these belts, I'm gonna lose my mind." That's exactly what they did. And I said, "So you're about to screw the title lineage up. You're about to screw everything else up, just because you wanted these two people to swap brands." You shouldn't have had the New Day win the tag titles. Just bounce them over to Raw, win the belts then, and then have the new Street Profits go over, and it would have been fine.
Hmm.
Would have made logical sense.
Yeah,
It's what they did last year or in the Superstar Shakeup when you had it was Jinder and Jeff, and Jinder won the U.S. title, then went to SmackDown. Then you had Jeff beat him when he went to or on Raw to then take the belt with him back to SmackDown. I'm like, okay, so you keep your belt on the same show you wanted it on, but still draft somebody new. It makes sense.
I know. Um, Over on Raw, are you a big Drew McIntyre guy?
I like McIntyre. I feel like if we had fans in the crowd, he'd be a lot more over than he is. I was so happy to see him win that belt because he's put so much in.
Yeah,
And I feel like, in all honesty, he's a good champion. He's not like a stale champion at all.
yeah,
But what's funny was I saw a thing the other day. He's literally had the same feuds that Kofi had last year,
right.
like same pay-per-views and everything.
Yeah,
But I feel like his competitors have had more of a chance. Like, I genuinely wouldn't be surprised. Like, when the ambulance match happened, I said, Randy has a chance to win a title here, even if it's for a short reign. I won't be surprised.
how
And I
good is
still
Randy
won't be
Orton
surprised if he
this
wins
year?
in the cell.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets I don't know. And well, what they did to Kofi after his title run too, just put him
That
back
was
to
stupid.
it was just so dumb.
You shouldn't
So
have had him lose the belt that way at all.
I know. I know. It's frustrating. I don't know how you know, one would get into the WWE creative how you get any influence in there, how you even get a job in there, but I feel like
Apparently, just go on LinkedIn. That's it.
really. But yeah, with what they're doing, I feel like it's I don't know. I feel like it's not
Sometimes it makes me scratch my head. And like I said before, I know everybody wants to point the finger at Vince. And yes, Vince has the final say. And Vince, I know fans want to go and say Vince is out of touch. But at the end of the day, it's not all Vince, because there are people who pitch these to him and say, hey, these are great ideas. And I'm like, No, they're really not. And the wrestlers will tell you that when they leave. They'll be like, no, these were the worst ideas I ever heard. But I
Yeah,
had to shut up and just take it.
I know. Well, that's why you got an AEW, right? To
Or even an Impact. Impact's been making a climb back.
really.
From what I've been hearing, and you've got a guy like Tommy Dreamer on there. You had Eric Young who left. He's the world champion now. You have the Good Brothers, Gallows and Anderson are over there. And you've got Kurt Hawkins over there under the name Brian Majors, and they're putting him as a main event star. It's definitely an alternative. I'll say that much. If you want some good action, doesn't have to always have the greatest stories. Like I tuned in for the Slammiversary pay-per-view back in June, I think. It was the first time I'd really seen their product, and I watched ever since. And I'm like, wow, it's gotten a lot better than what I thought it was, because it used to be really bad.
Yeah. I personally, I feel like, WWE would benefit from just kind of getting a little more, like real. I feel like it's just a little too out there and ridiculous and more on the, entertainment part
We'll
of,
see. And their biggest thing is they have to stay in that PG bubble because they don't want to lose sponsors.
mm-hmm.
People like AEW and Impact can instantly go, we're not going PG. We're going to be TV-14. Whether you like it or not, we'll get whatever sponsors we get. And when you're a company like AEW that has the backing like they have, you can afford to do that and have a dog collar match on weekly TV, which is a great concept. Or I see a guy like John Moxley who then goes and does his own spot from Wrestle Kingdom 14 and does the DDT off the apron through two tables. That looks like he just killed somebody. You can do that on a TV 14 channel. You can't do that on a TV PG.
Yeah. Whew. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like WWE is like just kind of been stagnant for the longest time, and like I don't really see.
I would agree 100%. And there's something somewhere that needs changed, and because you see a big difference even in that in NXT, and I don't know if that's with Triple H at the helm and maybe Vince.
See, I've been the biggest advocate for kind of doing something similar to UFC and kind of some New Japan, right? I like the weight class idea, right? So you have these big guys, these small guys, and these like really small guys, and you have two heavyweight titles, and like these guys that are smaller, like a Chris Jericho, but even smaller than that, and maybe less charismatic, has even less of a shot at any sort of stardom. If you can kind of separate these guys into weight classes, like you could have three legit main event stars at different weight levels. And
I 100% agree with that. And then also it's just like in the UFC,
right,
where you'll have guys that bounce between like three different classes,
right?
And so it's not to say that somebody who's classified as a cruiserweight can't bulk up,
Can't move up
and get to a light heavyweight or a heavyweight division at that point. It's
right.
just
You can
a
still
matter
have
of
your David
using your
Goliath
stars
matches
in a certain way.
right. Totally. I think that would be a big one in New Japan. I know that they kind of pay a lot of attention to like just kind of like the realism to it. Just kind of guys coming out with like their supporters, like
they treat it like a sport 100%.
Yeah,
they don't act the same way fans over here do. You're never going to see a Japanese fan go over there and look at all the dirt sheets and talk about what's going on. You're going to have the dirt sheet writers talk about Japan, but you're never going to see a fan going and looking for that. And that's the big difference. They get what they get, and they don't pitch a fit. They enjoy what they get but I also feel like they get a more realistic view of what's going on because of the way that they've always respected the business. I almost feel like at times WWE says, fine, you want to shit on my product? I'm going to give you shit in return.
Yeah.
Which at that point, can you blame them? No, because they do one thing to be nice to the fans, and the fans go, well, now I hate this. So what are you going to give me next? And I'm just like, it's a little kid. And I'm like, all right, screw you. I'm just going to give you shit now.
Right. Even with AEW too, I like how they were trying to incorporate records into it too. Like I feel like
Yeah, exactly. And it adds a different dimension to it that I feel like, even if it's something like records where it's like they always say wins and losses don't matter. Well, wins and losses at least mean something here.
yeah.
There's no 50-50 booking at that point.
Right. Right. And yeah, with such a huge roster like WWE too, like you can pad these guys' records pretty easily. Um and you could do it like each year too, or like make seasons into it where maybe they're on a slump this year, but we
Yeah,
have a
because I think that's what AEW does is it's through
yeah,
the whole year, and that's whatever they get. Or if somebody debuts, then and they only wrestle 2 matches in 2020, then they only wrestle 2 matches in 2020.
right.
But then they start off 0-0 2021.
Yeah, and final point too is I feel like when it comes to the big fights in WWE, they still think they dropped the ball with how the guys come out and the announcer. They don't have what was it, Howard Finkel back in the day. He was just
Uh-huh.
such a goat at that. He was there. Bruce Buffer. You don't really have that anymore, and I
I
feel
feel like the last guy who gave something like that was Tony Chimmel,
like
where you always hear Edge go and say, "That's the guy I want bringing me out to the ring,"
yeah.
because he's the last guy that I feel like had something like that.
Hmm.
And granted, having fans gone and even over the TV, like the video screens or whatever, it doesn't have that same feel in a way.
Yeah.
But it's if you had live fans in the crowd, I feel like you'd have a different story because WrestleMania didn't feel the same to me this year at all.
No,
And
that was
nothing's
pretty
really felt the
brutal.
same. I thought by now we'd be out of it, but it's kind of I almost feel like in a way 2020 you're just having to get by. It's not going to be the greatest stuff you've ever seen, but wait till we get live crowds again, and then that's going to be a totally different animal. Like the first show that WWE holds with live crowds, they're going to do something crazy.
Yeah, no, it's definitely better with the live crowds. I am happy they did the Thunderdome. Like I was saying that from day one that they need to get virtual fans in here
Yeah,
ASAP
because
just to
well, and my thing is, then they moved NXT to the Performance Center. I said, so why didn't you just like run a recap show for a couple weeks, spruce up the Performance Center the way you did here, and do it like that? Then you
Mhm.
don't have to rent the Amway Center.
Yeah.
But who am I?
What do I know? One more point too with the realism element. When the dudes come out, they're all I see all the time is if somebody's the champion but they're the heel, or they're always coming out first, and like your baby face
Well,
comes out second.
from what I've always heard, it used to be Challenger always came out first unless the champion wanted to. Like I look at Unforgiven 2006 when it was Edge and John Cena, and Edge came out first because he got that home crowd reaction. And so you had everybody in that arena cheering him. And as soon as that music flipped to John Cena, you heard deafening boos.
Yeah,
So
I guess occasionally it might work, but I think it's just been super inconsistent. Like they always have like the heel come out first, and then even when they're champion, like they just come out first, and then I just think that's kind of ridiculous. When you're the champion, you should always come
you,
out second.
well, yeah, or at least at that point, unless you want to make it a big moment to be the first one out for
Yeah,
whatever reason. Otherwise, it's always champion comes out last because you're the champion, you're the star.
right. I don't know. I think that's an area for improvement as well.
I
Um,
mean, like I said, this is kind of one of those years. I don't know if you'd like throw an asterisk next to it or what on some of the stuff that's gone on, but I feel like we all got to wait and see what 2020 really gives, or 2021, just because I don't know if I don't feel like we're going to have any major changes throughout this year just because of what's happened. You had your major
big
changes
Roman Reigns heel turn though
or
in the
right
middle
at the
of a
very beginning of
pandemic.
this pandemic.
Not too shabby. All right, we'll wrap things up here. So, again, welcome as a content creator, contributor for the Goonery.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, welcome aboard. What kind of things can we expect from you, or you want to dive into this year?
Just a lot of wrestling, in all honesty. That's why I started with a big piece. I know when I was writing it, it said it comes out to be like a 15-minute read. So
Yeah,
you may got to break it up into a couple chunks. It took me like 4 days to write because it was that much info.
right on.
But
Yeah, no, that
it's a
was a
good
hell
read, I
of
think.
a yeah, hell of a biography there. Um, what like more specific? What kind of things you want to write about or dive into?
Normally, I would say like it'd be a lot of weekly breakdowns, but with this, I'm not even checking weekly. So I feel like I'm gonna try and do some more like biographies on certain people. Like I've been kind of keeping in the back of my head one on Edge,
Yeah,
and just maybe even doing some biographies on certain events. Like I know when WrestleMania season comes around, I'll do one on WrestleMania. When Survivor Series comes around in November, I'll definitely knock one out on that, and just kind of give people who don't have like the biggest understanding of what things are, not in a layman's terms point of view, but just here's what it is. If you didn't know, here you know. If you're a fan like me and you want as much content as you can get, here you go.
right on. I appreciate it. Collin Sturchio, everybody. Uh, Go ahead and don't forget to subscribe to the Goonery on YouTube at the _Goonery. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and iTunes as well.